So I don't normally engage with Harry Potter these days, especially not since, Blood Libel, the video game. But I figure that what I'm going to talk about today is so divorced from the original content that I can kind of get away with it. So if you've never heard of it, Hogwarts School of Prayers and Miracles is a fanfiction on fanfic.net that went viral a few years back because of its premise, which is that a very Christian, very American housewife rewrote Harry Potter to be more appropriate for her kids. It's near and dear to my heart in a way that I never expected it would be when I first started reading it, just because it's such a fascinating glimpse at American Christianity. Just as a heads up, I haven't done any research for this video. I haven't even watched the other YouTube video essays on the subject. I know they're there. They keep showing up in my recommendeds, but I don't have that kind of time, guys. And if I did have that kind of time, I wouldn't spend it watching a video essay. I would spend it making one and putting on my most goofiest jacket to do it. So I'm going to start from the ending here. So if you want to go experience this fic for yourself, you might want to do that before I start getting into spoilers, because I feel like the end of the fic goes to really, for me at least, contextualize the entire thing. So at the end of the fic, we finally get to meet Voldemort. And he's a guy... That's it. He's just a guy. Voldemort's just a Reddit troll that makes fun of Christians and atheists alike. And then realizing that his satire isn't getting through to anyone, he renounces trolldom and leaves, while the rest of the characters pray feverishly for his salvation. The ending is weird, it is anticlimactic, and most importantly, it makes it very, very clear that this is not a sincere story. Grace Ann Parsons was not a real person. She was not a real housewife rewriting this for her kids. I know, I'm sorry, I fell for it too. This means that everything before this point has been completely intentional. Every ridiculous line, every hint of sexism, every dig at another denomination of Christianity, all the little details about everyone having a lot of chest hair and southern accent. This is a brilliant work of satire, actually, because not only does it address the, satanic panic with the Harry Potter franchise back in the day, but it also addresses Christianity as a whole. I could go down the list and name every little line that is funny or makes a good point, but I'm going to focus on what I find interesting about this, which is the way that it portrays the interactions between different denominations of Christianity. I also want to talk a bit about the author as a character, the fictional author. So if you read the author's notes, we find out a few things about her. We know that her name is Grace Ann Parsons. We know that her husband's name is Greg. We know that she at one point accidentally calls Snape Greg and is always describing Snape as having a lot of chest hair and being very well dressed. So, in a sense, Snape is the fictional author's voice piece. I just went ahead and took my jacket off because it's hot in here, and I also want to show off this cool shirt I made. Okay, I'm just gonna fashion show. Can you see it? Ta-da! What? Oh, I forgot to mention. Voldemort is specifically described as having only a thin layer of chest hair, which... beautiful. What an insight into Grace Ann Parsons' conception of masculinity. You could do a reading that Grace Ann is very repressed and or very horny, with her emphasis on chest hair. But I think it's more likely to be a commentary on traditional masculine roles, especially when you consider the fact that throughout the story, the modern world is being derided. Like, in the author's notes and out, the modern world is blamed as the results of everything, like, oh, the modern world, blah, 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 blah. So the author character is implied as being homeschooled, which makes sense because there's a very anti-public school thread as you follow along through the fic. She's also implied as not having read the books, of course. So in one of the author's notes, Grace Ann says that in the original series, Dumbledore is portrayed as flawless and perfect, which, that's another discussion. But she also hints that in her version, Dumbledore will have human flaws. These are never addressed directly in the author's notes, but you can very clearly see what she's hinting at if you look at Harry's inner dialogue, acting as a sort of voice for her, which is that she thinks that Dumbledore's attempt to unite all the different denominations of Christianity under the Sorting Hats is his great flaw. She is very anti-ecumenism. She is very anti-ecumenism. And this is not something that I guess I see addressed a lot in a lot of criticisms of Christianity, which is that the whole idea of loving the neighbor, of loving the sinner, that hypocrisy isn't just addressed at outsiders. It's addressed at each other. And you can see this in the way that Harry's friendship with Ron is implied to largely be an attempt to convert him. Chapter 7, the chapter that explores the sorting hat system in depth, is actually called Wheat and Chaff, which, if you've read the Bible, is a reference to the idea that sinners are the chaff, and they will be separated from the good wheat, and they will be burned. This is not subtle. Both authors, the fake one and the real one, they are showing the Christian disdain for other members of the denomination. Even Dumbledore, when asked for an explanation as to why the different denominations are grouped together in one school, points to Voldemort and the need for unity to fight a threat. He doesn't say anything about Christians all being the same or all being decent people or the value of friendship. He points at utility. This is the way that a lot of Christians tend to think. There's just a lot of focus on what individual groups everybody's in, like what church everyone goes to. Despite Grace Ann's assertion that she is an anti-Catholic, there is a steady thread of anti-Catholicism throughout the story, like when the Weasley family is described as having too many kids than they can afford to care for, and when the Bible on Ron's bed is described as strange-looking. By the way, Snape is specifically mentioned as having a King James translation. That's intentional. There's also, I think, some really funny hits at liberal Christianity in the way that Luna is described and her house. Like the way that she's categorized as being a vegetarian and having donkey patches on her clothes. This is just really funny to me. I grew up in a liberal church and we always call it the hippie church. So yeah, this is a valid criticism, I feel like. Especially the part about only caring about the judge not lest ye be judged part. That's spot on. There's also some interesting criticism regarding overly conservative and sexist Christians in the part where Snape says that atheists secretly love them because they can use them as an example for why all Christians are bad. That's a good point. Like, it is very easy to point at the loudest and angriest member of a group and say that everyone in the group is bad because of that one person. And I did not expect this silly fic to call me out on that, because I do that all the time. Like, not on purpose, but it's very easy to just... But anyway, it's not the best satire in the world, but given its unique perspective in the framework of a fake Harry Potter fanfiction written by an American Christian housewife, I feel like this is really fascinating work. I don't know, maybe troll fics are just like an art form or something, especially in the way that the author can interact with the comments that are coming in as she or he or they or whatever is writing it. So there's a lot to unpack here, as you can see. There's a lot of fun little details, and there's no way to tell what was intentional and what wasn't, but probably a lot of it was intentional. I do want to point out, though, in Chapter 12, the typo to love the sin and not the sinner. This was probably intentional. If not initially, then it was an intentional decision to keep the typo in the fic and address it at the start of the next chapter. This is fun. This is like a Freudian slip. I love this. Everything about this story is great. By the way, guys, I'm reading this off of fanfiction.net, and if you haven't used it in a while, it sucks now. You have to do a CAPTCHA just to get in, and then there's ads for STD clinics like every 5 sentences. Thank God for AO3. Someone has to archive this or something. Maybe they already have. Anyway, thanks for listening. This has been really fun. I feel like I'm an unsupervised kid on the internet again. If you like this video, don't do anything about it. I guess you can follow me on my Tumblr. This is my idea of humor.tumblr.com. I'm also KarateGirl99 on Archive of Our Own, if you want to read my fics for some reason. Unfortunately, there's no scathing satire of American Christianity in the guise of a Harry Potter fic on my AO3 account, but there's some other cool stuff there too, I guess. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. Bye!